Hi everyone, my name is Phil and welcome to Scraptail's third devlog. Now, unlike last week, I did implement some good stuff this week, I think. Starting where we left off last week, I did implement those badges that I mentioned. I've implemented 5 basic badges that I know are going to be there, but I do want there to be some more. Now, I also made the decision to have one final badge, which will be the combination of the badges you want throughout the level. For example, if you are silent and also don't kill anyone throughout the level, you get the shadow badge, which means that you haven't killed anyone, nobody saw you, you were in and out, and that's it. And that's the badge that will be displayed next to the level to represent the badges that you've already won. So you want to collect the combination of badges to get the final badge. I've also implemented dodging for the combat and alarms, which I feel will add some depth to the gameplay, especially the alarms. Right now the alarms will trigger as soon as someone sees you, but the end goal is to have one guard out of the group to call someone or run off to activate that alarm so that you do have some window to cut that off. As I also mentioned last week, I did want to remove that ugly cylinder for a tail as soon as possible, and so I got an asset on the asset store called Tail Animator, which did wonders. It animated my tail and added physics to it as soon as possible. It also added IKs, but as we will see later on in the video, those IKs didn't quite work out for what I wanted. I've also improved the upgrade system, which forced me to rework the entire interactable system, and that was an experience. But now with that out of the way, I've began implementing upgrades properly, and I've implemented the first commandable upgrade, which was the ranged kill. So if you have both the extension tail and the sharp tail upgraded, and you sneak up on someone, you can now kill them from a distance. Now, obviously there were a bunch of problems with this, which we will have a look at now. Now, possibly the most annoying problem that I had throughout the week was differentiating pushables and pullables versus nearby and ranged interactables. Now, I'm gonna get a bit technical with the problems, so bear with me. Now, the problems with the upgrades were that I was still kind of confused on whether I should use an event-based approach, or if, for example, one of the approaches I tried throughout the week was to add components when I initialize the upgrades. For example, when I have the ranged pickpocketing upgrade, I can just, in the initialize, say, okay, then for every item in the level, make it a pullable. And so then every item would be pulled using the rules that I established on the last problem. However, this didn't account for items that were spawned after the level started. The solution for this would be to have an item spawner which would register what components the item would have to have when it gets spawned throughout the level. Same thing applies to enemies. But this just seemed overcomplicated, to be honest, and so I decided to go with the event approach for now, which will force me to add an event to whenever anything happens, which will become a bit of a pain, I think. But we'll see. For now, I think it's the best approach. I've also been considering some ideas for the upgrades that change a behavior. For example, let's say that if I want the sharp tail to right now be a melee part, then in the future I could have an upgrade that makes a ranged part. And in that case, it has to override the behavior completely. And I have some ideas for that, but we haven't gotten there yet. Finally, the problem that plagued me throughout the final bits of the week. The tail doesn't work very well. The tail animator was made so that the tail would have some subtle movement and some subtle IK for tentacles and things. However, I want my tail to stretch. And when I try to stretch with the tail animator, here's what happens. As you can see, not great. So I had to start looking at some solutions. And now I'm going to show you my journey of what I had to go through to find these solutions. Now let's have a look chronologically. I first began to thinking, okay, but what exactly do I want from this? And the first thing that occurred to my mind was Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man. And I thought, surely they've made Dr. Octopus in the Spider-Man games. I've never played them. And lo and behold, I searched and here it is. Dr. Octopus in his whole glory. Now I want you to have a look at attacks like this one. Look, boom, the arm completely stretches to where Spider-Man was, but it doesn't look deformed like it did in the game at the moment. And so I thought, how did they do this? And the first thought that occurred to my mind was procedural animations. And so I started digging into that topic, which I never really cared about. I started by having a look at this video of someone that made a tentacle monster using only procedural animations in Unity as well. However, this isn't quite what I was looking for because from the looks of it, these arms do not stretch. However, this was a good start and I started going down the rabbit hole. So I thought, okay, whatever, I'll start learning about procedural animation. And I had a look at this video by Unity themselves where they procedurally generate the animations for this boss. Once again, very cool, but not exactly what I was looking for. So I continue. Someone had this asset of procedural tail animations, and I thought, this is it. This is exactly what I need. However, it's not available, and I'm not sure if this stretches either, and I don't think it does. If it's just simple IK, I can already do that with Tail Animator-ish. So I continued. I saw this video about maths with procedural animations. Very interesting, but not really what I need. But still, very interesting video. Do check it out. And finally, I saw this video about how to make legs. But once again, these do not stretch, so they're not good for me. And eventually, God bless, while looking for a video and through articles, I found this article on procedural generation. And that is the key difference that I was looking for. I'm not looking for procedural animations. I'm looking for procedural generation of a tail, exactly like this gift. I saw this gift and I thought, thank God, that is it. That is exactly it. The question was, how do I do it? And the article doesn't say. It says where you can start with procedural generation, but they mention this as being a very annoying process that they can't bother explaining. So yeah, I started going even further down the rabbit hole of procedural generation, and it didn't go great. Okay, I started stumbling through things and how to do them. I started watching this tutorial by Boards to Bits Games, but they only mentioned simpler procedural generation. Now with all of this, it is a topic that I want to explore further. However, as I was seeing this, a thought popped into my mind. Isn't this just splines? Right? So a mesh that gets generated along a spline that stretches. And so I started looking into splines now. And I found a couple of assets in the asset store, more specifically this spline mesh free and this spline mesh deform, which I had already gotten from bundle. Now spline mesh deform completely broke my project, doesn't work at all, and I get it why they give it for free in a bundle. However, spline mesh, closer. Not perfect yet, but definitely closer. I started messing around with the tentacle prefab that came with the asset, which looked great, but then I saw that I couldn't really update it at runtime no matter how much I tried. So I was about to give up. I started doing some more experiences with Tail Animator, which were being very frustrating, and so I thought, no, I have to do this. This asset is probably the closest I'm gonna get. After a bunch more failed experiments, I noticed a little checkbox at the bottom of the script, which allowed me to update the mesh at play mode. I was very mad when I found this. But lo and behold, I clicked it and... isn't that the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? I haven't implemented it into the character yet, but I'm so excited to do so throughout the next week. But yeah, this is all I have for you this week. Subscribe to the channel to see the results of all of these experiments, like the video if you liked it, and consider supporting the game with the Patreon link down in the description. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next week.